Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Klein family, we thank you for your presence here this morning as we remember the life and legacy of Mark Klein. At the conclusion of today's service here at the temple, the committal service will follow at Sylvan Abbey Memorial Park. At the request of the family, there will be no formal funeral procession to the cemetery. Those wishing to attend the burial service should drive directly to the cemetery and follow the posted directional signs to the gravesite. Shiva will be observed at the home of Stephen and Amy Klein this evening at 7 p.m. and again tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Those wishing to further honor the memory of Mark may do so by making a contribution to Temple B'nai Israel of Clearwater or the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. All of this information, including addresses, directional maps, and an online guest book, can be found at the funeral home website, heritagecarefl.com.
As we gather here this morning, I just want to make sure that you all are able to hear from the front to the back. Are you all able to hear in the back? Yes, I'm getting lots of nods. The volume is getting increased now as we speak. I am Rabbi Michael Bernholtz. I'm the rabbi here at Temple B'nai Israel. And as I welcome you into this space to honor and to remember Mark, it's really powerful that I use that word welcome, because I have been here for just over a year and a half. But to say that the Klein family was so vital in welcoming me is an understatement. We came here, and the Klein family really worked in incredible ways with such open arms to welcome Jill and I. And that is striking to me because I know all, as I've talked with Stephen and with Judy and with Amy, that the Klein family was so much a part of welcoming so many people to this community, that they were welcomed when they came here so many decades ago, and then they have been part and parcel, the heart and soul of Temple B'nai Israel, making this the incredible place it is. And so here we are on this morning to honor Mark the way he moved through the world, the way he made an incredible impact on so many lives in this congregation and in this wider community. Death cannot take that which is locked in our hearts. With our tears and our sorrow, we remember. With our courage and our strength, we do not forget. Acts of kindness, deeds of courage remain. Beauty created, wisdom shared is not lost. With our laughter and our sweet memories, we remember. For Mark's love that united us in life, which death cannot sever. For his companionship that we share along life's path and which continues through the tenderness of memory, for the gifts of his heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness and are now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give our thanks to God. As we are here in this place, we use the words of Jewish tradition in incredible ways. We offer words from Tanakh, from the Hebrew Bible, as a way of acknowledging those moments when our ancestors said goodbye to their loved ones, when they faced that place where the infinite and finite were immortal and mortal touched, and they had these expressions of words as they said goodbye to those they love. From Ecclesiastes, for everything there's a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak. From Psalm 90, O God, you have been a refuge in every generation. Before the mountains came into being, before you brought forth the earth and the world, from eternity to eternity, you are God. As for us, you turn us to repentance and say, return, you mortals. The days of our years are 70, or by reason of strength 80 years. but 1,000 years in God's sight are but yesterday when it's past, a watch in the night. Teach us, therefore, to number our days, that we may attain a heart of wisdom. And may your favor, O God, be upon us. Establish the work of our hands, that it may long endure. On the blue pages that have been passed to you, you should see Psalm 23. Words that are so familiar and so powerful. I'll start first in Hebrew, and then I invite you to join in together with the English. Mizmor LaDavid, Adonai ro'i lo exar, benot desha yarbitseni, al me menachot yachileni, yashi nafshi yoshvev, yacheni b'magled tzedek l'ma'an shemo, gam ki elech beged salmavet, lo ira ra, ki ata imadi. And we read together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Our parents taught us to praise the name of God, to praise the Holy One of blessing who created us into life. Not only in hours of joy and times of gladness did our people arise to praise God's name, but also in moments like this, in times of sadness and hours of pain. Through the long round of the centuries, we have learned to rise in the face of every storm, even in times of sorrow and pain, to praise God's name, to maintain a stance of human dignity, to affirm our consecration to the tasks of life. In confronting death, we can still utter a hymn of life. And so here we find ourselves in this place as we honor and remember Mark, how he moved through this world, how his life touched and shaped us and our path through life. It is never easy to say goodbye, but with these acts of memory, we let the light of our loved one's presence shine powerfully through us. As we are in this place, and we just finished our Tampa Bay Jewish Food Festival, and this building was filled with 5,000 people who can make incredible noise. And here we find ourselves going from that moment of simcha to this moment of surus. So we are saying goodbye to Mark, who made such an incredible impact on our world. This sanctuary is full. You probably heard it in that lobby just a few minutes ago, all of that noise. But here we come into this sanctuary, and we take a moment of silence. And there's two words for silence in Hebrew. One is, if you have been a student in a Hebrew school, you might have heard a teacher quiet their students by saying, "Sheket bavakasha," quiet, please. Some of you have heard that far too much, apparently. But there's another word for silence, and we find it in the story of Elijah when he stands on Horeb, when he stands at Mount Sinai. And it says that there's an earthquake, but God's not in the noise and fury of that earthquake. And there's fire and storm and every loud piece of nature you can imagine. And God is in and not any of that noise. When does Elijah connect with God? Kol demama daka. In a voice that is as thin as a reed. And that powerful, that still small voice is where Elijah. You see this again in Leviticus, and that's what brings us to this moment, is when Aaron the priest, his two sons, Nadav and Abihu, they go into the tabernacle, into the tent of meeting. They make some kind of offering that they're not supposed to do, and God kills them in that place. Moses comes out, he tells Aaron what has happened, and Leviticus simply says, Vayadom Aharon. That same root of Daled Mem Mem. Aaron was silent. Two words. We don't know how long he was silent, and we don't know what else he did. He just stopped and brought the silence of honoring his sons, of remembering his sons, the silence of his grief, the silence of his sadness, the silence of thinking the ways that he would make their memory into a blessing. It's that kind of powerful silence that we create in this space, not just stopping from talking, but the silence of creating and feeling memory. And so here in this place, we take that kind of silence, the silence that Elijah heard on Mount Sinai, the silence that Aaron created as he honored his sons, here in this place. As we remember Mark Klein, each in our own way, we take a moment of that kind of silence. Yihyu l'ratzon imrei fi v'hegion libi lefanecha Adonai tzuri v'goali. Just as we remember with silence, may the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, O God, my rock and my redeemer. As we are here in this place, we are honoring Mark the way that he moved through the world. And yesterday, as I was coming in, Renee Rainey, who is one of those incredible Yiddish mamas of our congregation, she looked at me and said, Rabbi, the first rule that any Yiddish mama, the Yiddish mother says to the rabbi, keep it short. And she says, there's a lot to say about Mark, but maybe all you need to say is that Mark was a mensch, a true human being. And then I kept hearing it from different people as they would make comments to the people working in his office that said he was just an amazing mentor, that he saved their lives. It was what Amy and Stephen and Judy said, that the way Mark moved through the world was extraordinary. He was the kind of person that treated his friends who were like family, and his family, they were his friends. He was also the kind of guy that didn't want any accolades or attention. Amy, you cracked me up when you were like, Mark was like, just toss me in a garbage can and just keep going. That was kind of his mentality. He was the kind of guy that if the building was burning, he would go in and pull you out. He was the kind of person who would do the crossword in ink every night. He had his sense of direction in the world and in life. And while he moved through this world, he looked for every opportunity to help and guide others. He would always look forward, and he would never dwell on stuff that he couldn't fix. Mark was quick and smart, and he had a dry sense of humor. He would tell you what he thought. He was what he was, and that was exactly what you would get. And I just remember a conversation that I had with Judy. I was trying to reach out to Mark when I found out that he was sick, and I said, well, what's his cell phone number? And your words, Judy, and this was a few months ago, and you said, just call him at the office. He's always there. That was Mark. That was who he was and how he moved through the world, and you were saying that he's had the same support staff for 35 years. But that wasn't just because that's who he had around him. It was because people stayed and worked for him even into their 90s, because that was just what Mark did. He created those relationships and those connections with people and found people and supported people and got them where they needed to be. Mark was the bad cop, right? He was the rough and he was the gruff, and Buzz, his partner, was the refined, the one who smoothed it out. The two of them might have had different ideas and different approaches, but they were ezer kenegdo. They were truly helpmates with each other, oil and water that made it work in incredible ways. That was Mark, how he moved through the world, how he built that office and that business, but also this whole community. I think that it was John Rindy who said, look at him. He went from the Safety Harbor Spa to building his own business, recreating himself through all of that hard work and building all of those people around him. That was Mark. He wanted longtime clients, people that he had built relationships and friendships with, that he knew that he could trust them and they could trust him, and became friends along the way. But even as he was doing that, what was he doing? He was caring about people and helping them get on their feet. That he would see somebody that just needed a hand and he would help them get settled in life so they could be successful. He was happy when he could help people launch. It was just how he did things, just his way. There was a story that you shared of there was a friend who ran into trouble, and what did he do? Quietly and in his way, he picked up that person's mortgage so that they didn't lose their house. He just stepped in and helped. He would always looking for those moments to give people opportunity, but did it in a way with such quiet dignity. Wasn't about the accolades. He just wanted everybody around him to succeed. And then there was those moments where you would look into his eyes and see those gears turning. That was how you could see that he was trying to make how it would work and how he could bring in friends and partners and others, that it wasn't just his success, it was everybody's success around him. And I share those stories about the work and the environment he created in that office, but that certainly was not all of Mark. He wasn't all just about the work, because you were also sharing some I know, he was all about the work. Oh, but come on, that's Judy giving me the look. You also intermixed so many of those little stories from your family too. That on his 90th birthday, and Amy, I have the box, it's somewhere, that you all were given a task of writing 10 things that you admired about Mark, and you all had a massive game of guessing who wrote them. That, Stephen, you just said this morning how incredible it was that you got to work with your dad as a real partner for 28 years. That he leaned on you, you leaned on him, and the two of you had that incredible partnership. And there was also the silly stories that you shared. I'm still trying to figure out how to tell this. Some of you might know that Amy is a designer, and she likes to have things just so. Yes, you. And she was working with Mark and Judy and working on their living room, and she found Judy the perfect chair. It was an elegant chair. It was a glorious chair. It was the perfect chair. Mark didn't like the chair. Mark had a particular thing he wanted from his chair. He didn't care how it looked. He didn't care where it sat. He wanted his chair. And the thing about this chair, and I just can't bring myself to say it, because he would call it his effing chair. I just want to sit in my effing chair. What made it incredible is the look on Amy's face when she tells the story, because I think she purposely would go and sit in the chair before Mark got there, so he would give her a look and she would give him a look, and they would just be able to have their moment over the effing chair. It was the story you were telling that they were pregnant with Jared, and what did Mark declare? Grandkids. I'm never taking them to Disney World. And of course, he took you all to Disney World. Stephen, when you said that he was a lifelong Bucs fan, you sat through an 0-26 set of seasons with pride. And I'm guessing your dad kvetched and growled and cheered. Did he ever wear a bag over his head? That was the story you were telling about being in Aspen with baby Sophie, that you were out and Jared was, Sophie, you were a baby, so they left you at home with Judy, but they took Jared in the bicycle trailer. And there they are on their bikes, and they see a bear. And the rest of them were curious. They wanted to look at the bear, But Mark was no nonsense, and he said, "Neither of you move. There's a bear. We are backing away slowly." There was the stories that you all told that just made you laugh, that you would go on ski trips with the Rosewaters, but not boat trips, because apparently Mark was a curse on boats. But he must have also had quite the sense of humor, because at one point in celebrating Mark, they had a party that was entitled, Get Mark's Goat, Bring Him a Boat. And then I think they filled the pool with toy boats just to tease him. You told stories about his work, and you told those stories about his family. You told me some of the stories about him being here, that he was on the board here, that it meant the world to see this congregation succeed, and that he served on the board in so many challenges. But you also told me about other parts of his Judaism, that he was one of those people that would come on Yom Kippur and stay all day. Even if Shabbat services were not his favorite, Yom Kippur was part of his tradition, and that's what he was going to do. And then you all started sharing so many stories of holidays at home and Shabbat dinners with your kids, with the kids as teenagers and grandkids as teenagers, that it was a center of life. Those little pieces of family that, Amy, they welcomed your parents here, and they made them part of the community. And the reality is, as I get ready to call so many people that are friends and family forward, that there are just not enough stories or words to really capture it. That, Stephen, you said it so simply about your parents. They've been married for 63 years. That they were a team, that they were partners, that they came from opposite ways of doing things in the world, but they made it work in such incredible ways. As I share just a little bit of those stories, it's to bring Mark's presence into this room, into this space, and now I give his family and friends the opportunity to share their stories, to talk. And the Hebrew word is you honor someone's presence. And the Hebrew word for honor is kavod, that kavod has a sense of gravity, of weight to it, that we feel his gravity, we feel his presence as we make Mark Klein's memory truly into a blessing. As I call forward Stephen to share his memories to honor his father.
Well, first I want to thank you all for coming. My family really appreciates it, and I really appreciate it. And if I didn't have a chance to greet you today, I look forward to greeting you sometime later. I wanted to share just a few things about my dad, kind of fill in the holes, if you will. Rabbi did a great job, and I just want to add a little bit to it. My dad was born to my grandparents, Julie and Jean Klein, in 1935. He graduated from Irvington High School and attended Fairleigh Dickinson University, where he graduated with a degree in management. My mom and dad, as Rabbi said, were married for 63 years, and they lived in Livingston. But as young parents with a 2-year-old child, they moved to Florida in '67 and began work at the Safety Harbor Spa. While my dad worked at the spa, he began investing in real estate, and he enjoyed it so much that he decided to make that his career. My dad had a natural understanding of real estate and finance, and he helped so many clients over the years achieve their goals when purchasing or selling property. When I was a little kid, he would take me to the office or drive around with me on weekends looking at property, and I loved to be with him. Maybe he was taking me around so he could spend more time with me, or maybe he just wanted to expose me to the things that he loved so that maybe I would find it something that I would like to do. Either way, I was always happy to be with him. His passion for the industry ran deep, and eventually my dad and his partner decided to open their own company, in 1983. He and Buzz opened Klein and Hutchin, and they grew the company by bringing on great people, many of whom have been with them for decades. Mark and Buzz were ahead of the curve when it came to innovation. They tried new things. They weren't afraid to fail. And I just think he was such a smart person that he always seemed to work something out if it needed to be. I always aspired to work with my dad, but he didn't want me to come back and work in real estate right away. He wanted me to go somewhere else and build my own life and gather my own knowledge. A good friend of mine who also had the pleasure of working with her dad sent me a message the other day reminding me how lucky we were. And she was right. We got to learn from our dads, work side by side with them, and build a business with them. I loved working with my dad. It was amazing. My dad was so happy he was able to help his clients achieve their goals. He not only was able to generously serve his clients, but he often became close friends with many of them. He was a friend and a supporter of his competitors as well, and he was always willing to help people working in our industry. My dad always said the only thing that really mattered was your reputation, and he always treated his coworkers, his clients, his competitors, his friends better than he treated himself. Alongside his career in real estate, he almost had a parallel occupation in banking. He served as a director of a number of banks, and he loved that industry. He just loved the people. He loved the relationships. They meant so much to him. My dad was an avid tennis player for 55 years. He played on Saturdays with wonderful people. For almost 20 years, he had a Monday night standing tennis war with his great friend and partner, Joel Traub. He and Joel would regale me and my mom with stories of how their incredible Wimbledon caliber matches stretched on past the club's closing time, how the staff would gather in the grandstand and watch, captivated, as the battle wound down to its dramatic end. No matter how good or bad the tennis actually was, my dad looked forward to playing that match every single week. My dad was also an active skier. Our family was fortunate to travel and ski with our close friends. On many of these trips, my dad happily and joyfully allowed his friend Stan Rosewater to literally attempt to kill him by only skiing the black diamonds and the double black diamonds. But my dad loved it. Everyone affectionately referred to him as yard sale because when he crashed, everything exploded off of him. It's one thing to lose your skis and your poles, but even with his pockets zipped up, his stuff would be scattered around the mountain. Like Rabbi said, my dad was a true Buccaneers fan. We went to almost all the games and sat through 0-26, rain or shine. When Jared was old enough, my dad started taking him, and they loved it. My dad and mom, they loved traveling. A couple of times a year, they would travel with their close friends to New York to see a show. I kind of figured they were just running around the city like kids, trying to soak up all the fun that they had. I always said my dad loved three things: his family, real estate, and tennis, though not always in that order. But there was a fourth thing he loved, and that was people. He loved spending time with his family, and he cherished every moment he spent with his grandchildren. He loved being with his friends. He loved the conversations, the joking back and forth, the trips, the dinners, the lunches, the meetings. They were all an opportunity to share ideas and laugh. My dad treated everyone with respect. It didn't matter who you were. If my dad had the fortune of meeting you, he took the time to listen and learn. He showed kindness. He helped any way he could. He tried to make everyone's life better. Now, that doesn't mean he didn't blow his top every once in a while or use a wee bit of profanity. Just a little. But he cared. He was a problem solver. He could look at any deal and almost always figure out how to make it happen. I was amazed at how innovative he could be, how he could think outside the box and make sure that his clients were successful and that his transactions were win-win, with both sides ending up happy. My dad helped his family so much, always giving us ideas and advice. I felt like he had almost 2 lifetimes worth of knowledge, and he gladly shared it, whether you wanted it or not. He was incredibly resilient. He never looked backwards. He only moved forward, and he never stopped working. As you know, my dad went to the office every day until he was almost 90, and he always wore a tie, always. He was the first one in, and he was probably one of the last ones out. But my dad was so fortunate to have had a relationship with just about everybody in this room. Over the past few days, people would tell me or my mom how much my dad helped them or how nice he was to them. I'm blessed to hear that. I'm really blessed to have heard that since I was a little kid. And I can categorically say that all of you meant more to him than you could ever know. My friend Danny Farrell, who owns Lenny's Restaurant, put a sign on the marquee when he learned my dad had passed. When a buddy of mine told me to go check it out, I drove over and took a photo. It made me cry. That sign summed it all up and speaks to why we're all gathered here today. And all that sign said was, "Goodbye, Mark Klein. You will be missed."
They brought some paper, I brought my phone, pretty typical. It's so hard to put into words just how to describe a person who is truly larger than life. It's as if the simplicity of letters and sentences and paragraphs cannot truly do justice to a man like my grandpa, Mark Klein. My grandfather was the single most hardworking and dedicated person I have ever known and probably ever will know. Shortly after he was diagnosed with cancer, he and I were talking about everything and how it was and what he was feeling at the time. And when I asked him what he had been up to, his response was essentially, "I wish I was effing working." And boy, if that didn't describe who my grandfather was, I'm not sure too much else will. In fact, I'd like to think his only regret was that he didn't get to take his work with him when he passed. I've never seen someone so dedicated to their work in my life. The man worked 6 days a week, every single week, up until the day he physically could not work any longer. And he did it all with a smile and a pep in that slightly awkward step that made you think he was about to teeter over at any moment. But somehow he just managed to stay upright on his feet and keep plowing along, plowing forward through whatever it was he had his mind lasered in on. When I think about him, some of my fondest childhood memories play over and over in my head, and the overwhelming majority of them are spending time with and around him. From playing two-hand touch in the street in the front of his house, me usually outpacing him a little bit, swimming together on our pool, as I got older, driving around town, looking at properties and land and talking about life and work and growth and health and happiness, or even just sitting around the dinner table and watching and playing and trying to beat each other at Jeopardy, he typically won. Every moment with my grandfather was full of laughter and learning, and most of all, love. As the years went on and I got older and went off to college, we were always connected and chatting about what was going on, especially with the Tampa Bay Rays and the Bucks. We'd text back and forth during Rays games, always telling each other what was happening in the game, even though we were both watching the exact same thing on the television. He always told the story about taking me to my first Bucks game. We got there, sat in the club seats for a little bit. Before the first quarter was even over, we had gotten up, had ice cream at the Carvel cart in the Bucks helmet with sprinkles, of course. I finished my ice cream, and then I decided I'd had enough and I wanted to leave. He smiled, despite the fact that he had paid top dollar for our tickets, and it was only just halftime. He begrudgingly obliged, and we went home and listened on the radio. That was just one of the ways my grandpa showed me his love. In 2021, I was fortunate enough to be able to witness and watch our team, a team he more than I, had suffered through watching for what was essentially my entire lifetime. We got to watch them win the Super Bowl. And rather than go to Tampa and party in the streets and at the bars with my friends, I chose to sit right next to him and watch our team achieve our dreams together. Grandpa was the person I wanted to experience that with, and it was a decision I will never regret and always remember. The feeling of hugging him when they lifted that trophy was something that I will treasure and will stick with me forever. Growing up here in the local community, I've been told by so many people, pretty much every person I've met, everyone who knew my grandpa, what a wonderful, confident, kind, generous, hardworking, and honest man he was. It seemed like everyone he crossed paths with had nothing but endlessly positive things to say. He truly embodied what it really meant to be a stand-up guy. He was constantly thinking of and looking out for others, especially the people he cared so much about. I could go on and on endlessly about what a true mensch my grandfather was. A pillar of our community, a father, a husband, a friend, a business partner, but most of all, he was my grandpa, and I loved him so much. I'll forever cherish my memories and hold them close to my heart. Hug and hold the people you love, because you never know how long it'll last. Cherish every moment and save every memory. I promise you won't regret it. Thank you, Grandpa, for everything you've taught me, everything you've instilled in me during my 25, almost 26 years on this earth. There's nothing I think he would want more than for me to honor and carry on than his legacy. That will be something that I will do with the greatest amount of pride. Thank you all for being here to celebrate him with us. I'd say he's up there smiling down at all of us, but I think we all know he's probably in his office up there doing what he loved most, work, and that makes me happy.
Over the past few days, my family and I have found ourselves sharing the words that best capture who my grandpa was. The phrase we kept coming back to again and again was simple but true. He was a one-of-a-kind man. He carried himself with quiet strength, serving as a pillar for our family and our community. An extraordinary man who accomplished so much in his lifetime. Grandpa was a giver. He generously supported countless philanthropies and always gave back to the community that helped shape him into the person and businessman he became. It brought him immense joy to see the impact of his generosity, and he always made it a priority to invest his time, energy, and heart into making a meaningful difference in the lives of others. When I think about Grandpa, I think about eating Malamars and ice cream together, skiing in Steamboat, and tucking myself under his desk, playing cashier with my McDonald's cash register. It only made sense that we would play in his office because, as we all know, he was always working. And truly, that is what he loved most. Grandpa supported his family unconditionally. He never missed a moment in mine or Jared's life. Every year, he was at my dance recital, even if he happened to sleep through most of them. My piano recitals were no different. He was always there, usually sleeping. But what mattered most is that he was there to love, cheer, and support us. He was there to watch both Jared and I graduate college and begin our lives as independent adults. Jared found his way into real estate, and I into finance and banking, the very two industries that Grandpa built his legacy in. I think there was something deeply meaningful to him about watching us follow in footsteps that he had so proudly created. At my bat mitzvah, my grandpa described me as a force to be reckoned with. But the truth is, he was the true force, steady, resilient, and deeply impactful in everything he did. Grandpa, thank you for the incredible imprint you left on my heart and in my life, and for everything you instilled in me. You will be deeply missed by so many, but your legacy will live on within each of us. I miss you, and I love you.
And just as his child and grandchildren came forward to praise him, I call forward David Belsky, one of his nephews.
Well, first off, I don't want to ever speak after any of you again. Just want to set that out there right now. So thank you. I'm David Belsky, one of Mark's nephews. To my cousins, I want to say you all know how much he loved all of us. I was his favorite. I want to make sure you know that too. He told me this, but I shouldn't have said that. I want to tell a story for you of two uncles. It was a story that Mark told me, and I will not tell it as well as he did, I'm sure. But it was one that I always enjoyed, and I don't even remember why he told me the story, but as I was flying down here, I realized why he probably told me the story. So I had an Uncle Irving, this was my father's uncle, so a generation older. Irving was very much like Mark in many ways, caring, wonderful, capable, smart. So Irving in the 60s was a union leader in the food industry in New Jersey. And so Uncle Mark was just getting started out in his life and career. He'd just been married. And I don't remember the details. He was working someplace in that same industry, probably as a management trainee or a manager. And there was a strike. And I remember I mentioned that this was the 1960s in New Jersey. So there's a strike, and Mark was pressed into service to make some deliveries because the Teamsters were supporting the strike. And he shows up at a customer, as he's telling me the story. He shows up at a customer with his delivery, and he sees my Uncle Irving. And he sees, as he described it, David, two of the biggest men I've ever seen in my life are standing with him. And Irving sees my uncle. They knew each other. They're all from Newark. And he walks over and he takes Mark aside and he says, "Mark, what are you doing here?" He goes, "Mark, you can't be here. This is not a safe place to be, right? You can't be making these deliveries, Mark. And he says, Mark, you got a brand new, you just married, you got a new family. You gotta take care of yourself. And Mark, who I believe was terrified at the moment, at least based on the story, although it's hard to imagine him being terrified by anything, Mark says, I know, Irving, but I have a family I have to take care of. And I thought about that story when I flew down here, and I said, that's exactly Uncle Mark. It didn't make a difference what was happening there, but he had this, he knew he had to take care of his family. And however he solved that problem. Obviously, he solved it well, because they both survived the encounter. And Irving loved him, too. This is what I saw for my entire life, ever since I was a little kid, he helped build this family that was just such an incredible place to be in. It was just such a warm place. I learned so much. I became, I hope, the person, the father, and the family member that he modeled, that my dad modeled, that Aunt Judy and all of my aunts and uncles showed me to be. And then I got here, and I was just astounded by the number of people I saw in the lobby. And I said, it's not just about family for him. It was about the communities he built. And I wanted to be able to come up and just thank you all for letting me see. I knew the man as my uncle, and a wonderful uncle he was. But to see the person who built community in the way he did it was such a profound experience for me walking in, that I will always take that away, and I will always thank you all for just letting me see who he was beyond what I knew of. So, celebrate him and take away the blessings that he left us, and the humor and the F-bombs that I never quite got used to hearing. But, and so, Uncle Mark, I'll miss you too.
And another nephew of Jay Waldman comes forward to share his memories.
Good morning. David, I wasn't going to bring it up in my eulogy, but I have to now since you opened up the door. I am Aunt Judy and Uncle Mark's favorite. I always was, and I always will be, okay? Look at this room. Look at this crowd assembled in this beautiful synagogue. This was Mark Klein's, one of his favorite places and passions. Many people in this room know how much Mark and Judy loved being part of this congregation. Founding members, big donators, big donators. This love and passion of Judaism and love of family has been passed down to their family. And one second. And to their family. I have very deep memories of early in my career, I would come over to Clearwater and I would stay with Mark and Judy, and Judy would welcome me in, feed me her infamous chicken, baked chicken, which is, everybody in Clearwater should know about that. Gave me a warm bed to sleep. The next day, my uncle would plot out my whole territory. I was a sales rep. He was like my human GPS system. And he was so excited to wait for me to come back and to hear about my day. And he was always giving me pointers, which really helped me build a very, very successful business. Just truly an unbelievable mentor. He loved his family. He loved mentoring people. all these realtors that he wanted to make them successful and be a part of their career. And just looking out into this room, it's like, oh my God, everybody knew Mark Klein. Mark always said to me when I went to work, he says, tell your accounts, you know Judy and Mark Klein. He says, I'll tell you, it's going to yield a lot of orders. And it really did. It really did. Look, let's be honest. Klein and Houchin signs are all over the place. I'm like, these people have to be my God. Look at them. But I'm just so happy to be here. Gonna miss him. Get effing ready. Mark Klein is coming. And he's gonna need a front row chair to oversee his legacy moving forward. Thank you.
So I don't know if it's David as the favorite nephew or Jay, but Joshua potentially could be in the running as well.
Good morning. I'm proud to speak about my Uncle Mark as his favorite nephew. Honestly, his nieces and nephews are a diverse group, but I suspect our experiences with Uncle Mark are very similar. It will surprise probably no one here that Uncle Mark didn't exactly fit the traditional uncle mold. There were no quarters pulled from our ears, no silly nicknames, no long, winding stories about his childhood. In fact, I'm fairly certain he was born Uncle Mark already employed at Safety Harbor Spa, and then later had his own company. But the most un-uncle thing he did, and maybe the best, was that he treated us like adults in the best possible way. He spoke with us in real conversations, not monologues. He didn't talk down, he engaged. The only downside was the occasional shock of some of the well-placed four-letter language while we were still in elementary school. Though, if I'm being honest, that may have been Aunt Judy's influence. I'm reminded of a conversation I had with Uncle Mark when I actually was an adult. I had a mortgage and a contract issue, and it's the kind of, it's what our family simply referred to as Ask Uncle Mark question. We were all at a family gathering, so I asked if he had a minute. He looked at his watch, which he somehow always wore slightly turned on his side of his wrist, and said, "Your Aunt Judy went to get her coat and say goodbye to everybody, so I've only got about an hour." He had a clear understanding of the Van Postnek family timing. But what mattered was this. When you asked him, he gave you the time, his full attention, his judgment, his honesty. He didn't sugarcoat. He didn't ramble. He listened. He thought. And then he told you exactly what he believed in direct, unvarnished, sensible language, occasionally dotted with words I won't repeat. And that was the gift. Uncle Mark made you feel capable. He made you feel taken seriously. He made you feel ready for adulthood, because in his eyes, we already were.
As we hear from Mark's family, we also hear from some of his friends. Call for Scott Skulkus.
My name is Scott Sulkus, and I grew up here in Clearwater and in this temple. I wanted to share very briefly some thoughts about Mark Klein, or simply Uncle Mark to me. I am not eligible for favorite nephew. I was the kid next door. In the late 60s, my family arrived in Clearwater, and they were told by the developer of the neighborhood that they were going to be living next to a Greek Orthodox priest. There was a large Greek Orthodox church up the road. And the story goes that one day my father called my mother, called her when he was at work and said, "Did you meet the priest?" And my mother said, "I don't think we're living next to a Greek priest whose name is Klein from Newark." From that moment on, I have been blessed to be part of Planet Klein. Whatever time we spent together then makes me smile now. Whether it was the Passover Seders we had together, or time at the pool, or with Grandpa Gene and Grandma Julie, or Amy and Steve's wedding, or all the bar mitzvahs throughout the generations. I smile remembering the animated directions I heard Uncle Mark give Aunt Judy during a hand at bridge in the Bridge Club circa 1973, after I was put to bed in Aunt Judy's guest room. The Mark Klein vibe was festive, positive, vital, kind, engaged, generous, and beautiful. Mark's legacy will not be understated as it lasts for years to come. He built his success in the real estate world his way, and he took that success and he turned it into a brand that is now recognized throughout the region. He was one of the earliest influencers. Look around you, it's a sellout. For those of you in the old guard here at Temple, they opened the door to the social hall. You know what that means. I mean, Uncle Mark, they opened the door to the social hall for you. He was a leader in the community, in this temple, in healthcare, and in community banks. He was an athlete, as we know, on the tennis court all throughout his life, even until the recent months. He was a quiet giant, sometimes, but the love he put forth was palpable. Nothing was too much trouble, and he was devoted to his duty. Steve, you are his pride. Speaking of the love between Mark and Steve, I was part of a funny, unscripted moment. I was the treasurer of our Temple youth group one year, and Steve had been the treasurer before. I remember getting the checkbook and seeing a note in the back. "Steve, I balanced the checkbook. Love, Dad." I mean, to sort out teenagers' finances, that's love. Amy, it should go without saying, but I'll say it anyway. You are one of his own. Jared and Sophie, the sun rose and set on you, as it should with grandparents, as it does with your adoring Bubby. Recently, I know how happy your grandpa was to meet Ben and see Sophie and Ben together. I had dinner with Aunt Judy and Uncle Mark last August when they were in New York City. Besides having a wonderful evening together, how fortunate am I to take with me the memory of Uncle Mark at his vintage, vibrant best. This is a solemn day, as it is Jewish custom, really obligation, to comfort the mourners amongst us. But today is much more. The people in the sanctuary are here because their Mark Klein is not going to move on from this world without first having a loving, personal escort. We are very, very sad, but we celebrate the remarkable Mark and his exceptional life well lived.
And last to come forward, another one of those family friends, Joseph Schwartz.
Well, this is sort of generational. I still need my paper. Anyway, good morning. But it's not such a good morning. None of us want to be here today. We have lost a friend, colleague, and loved one. What a loss. And we're all pissed that Mark has done this to all to us. Mark, he was an unusual individual. He came from humble beginnings to achieve greatness. He accomplished this by friendship, integrity, honesty, and a willingness to go the extra mile for you. He played by the rules. You know how refreshing that is in this day and age. I wish we all had these qualities. He had a never give up philosophy. I sort of remember our ski trips, and he never quit. We had our yearly father-son trips. You know, what great times, were great memories. One was there he was on top of a black diamond run, looking down, saying, "Holy crap," as well as other choice words. So he skied down, fell, picked himself up, fell again, and you know the rest of the story, all the way down to the bottom. But much of his strength was his love for family. Family was always first, as it should be. The results speak for themselves. A loving, devoted wife, accomplished son, adoring daughter-in-law, grandchildren, as well as many loving cousins, nieces, and nephews. He was a successful man. He made a difference to all of us. But how do you judge success? I think sort of Ralph Waldo Emerson said it best. Quote, "To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate the beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded." And Mark hit it all. We all have lost a friend, colleague, and loved one, but I feel I have lost a brother.
Rabbi Bachia ben Pekuda said, "Days are scrolls. Write on them what you want to have remembered." And we have just heard just a touch, just a piece of Mark's life, and the way he touched people, these incredible memories. And as Scott said, that we said those beautiful words that we pave the way, that we escort with all of our light and with all of our love. So as you have heard these stories, let us continue to share those stories. Let us find those ways of weaving the threads of Mark's experience and life into the fabric of our own, that we don't just have our memories in here and up here, but we bring his memory as a blessing into this world through the way that we live, that is built upon what he shared with us and what he showed with us. The world is different, it's emptier and strange. But you never leave me floating through my mind. Before you were out there, and now you're in here with me. A room full of people, when I look, I can only see them faintly beyond your face. I'm listening, but I barely hear them on the other side of your voice. When I speak, I hear your cadence in my voice. When I turn my head, I feel it settle at the angle you left vacant. Now, as I reflect, I recognize your thinking shaping my own thoughts. The world is different. I don't need to hold you, for you will never leave me. And so we bring Mark Klein into this world. We bring him into this world. His memory is a blessing for all of us. As we are here in this place, as we share those incredible memories, as we are here in this place, we use the words of El Mali Rachamim and ask for God's protection of the Spirit. And we see it in Jewish tradition again and again, that there is a connection between our breath and our spirit. We see it in our morning blessings and our evening blessings. We see it when we talk about Adam, the first human being coming into this world that was full of the breath of life. We see that relationship between our breath and our soul and our connection to the transcendent and divine. And so as we are here in this place and we feel Mark's Spirit with us in our memory and the way that we move through the world, we offer the words of El Malei Rachamim. We hear these words about God's protection of the Spirit that returns to God when we breathe our last breath in this world. And so as we close our service here in this place, I do ask you all to please rise. These words are just below Psalm 23. And so as we offer these, this is the end of our service here at Temple B'nai Israel. And then folks are invited to join the family up if you are able at Sylvan Abbey. And I know there will be signs to direct everybody. We won't be leaving in procession from this place. We'll just be invited to go up there for those of you who are able to join us. And so on that page, I first offer El Malei Rachamim in Hebrew, and then we will offer those words together in English. El Malei Rachamim, shochen baromim, hamseh menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashechina, im kodashim utaharim kazohar harakia mazirim, et nishmat Mordechai Shmuel ben Tzvi, shahalach la'olamo, Baal harachamim yistarehu beseter kanfav la'olamim, v'yitzror b'tzror hachim et nishmato, Adonai hu nachlato, v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo, v'nomar Amen. And we read together. O God, full of compassion, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest under the wings of your presence to our loved one, Mark Klein, who has entered eternity. Master of mercy, let him find refuge forever in the shadow of your wings. Let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. The eternal God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. As we prepare to depart from this place, as you go through our lobby, if you are coming to the cemetery, you are certainly bringing those words of Kaddish with you. But if you are not going to the cemetery, you can return those pages to our lobby so that we can continue to use them in acts of memory.